The engine and transmission are placed on a large subframe. This solution was first used in 1980 on a small Renault 9 sedan, and then migrated to more modern models of the French brand. The subframe also holds the front McPherson struts with the help of wishbones. Their design and shape are reminiscent of those that were installed on old Renaults, such as Megane I or Clio II. The lever configuration is an equilateral triangle. The durability of the front suspension largely depends on the operating conditions. Renewal of exfoliated silent blocks may be needed after 60 to 100,000 kilometers, and worn ball bearings after 100,000 kilometers. The rear suspension is of two types. In front-wheel drive versions, a torsion beam is used, and in all-wheel drive versions, an independent circuit with two parallel wishbones and one trailing arm is used. This configuration has been widely used by Japanese, Korean and Italian manufacturers for many years. The rear suspension components are more durable. They practically do not require attention up to 150 to 200,000 kilometers. But shock absorbers on the front or rear axle can become snotty after 50 to 100,000 kilometers. After 60 to 100,000 kilometers, one of the rear wheel bearings may buzz. Renault Duster with all-wheel drive is equipped with a 6-speed manual transmission TL8. They tried to compensate for the lack of traction with short gear ratios. 4.45:1 first gear means that at 1000 RPM, the car will only reach 5.79 km per hour. The first two gears and reverse gear, 4.86:1, are completely identical for both petrol and diesel versions. The gear ratios of the other speeds are different. Front-wheel drive Duster modifications were equipped with a 5-speed manual JR5. The manual transmission clutch lasts more than 150,000 kilometers. Alternatively, the 2-liter petrol version could get a 4-band automatic, DP8 with all-wheel drive or DP2 with front-wheel drive. Part of the Dusters with automatic transmission was included in the service campaign to replace the distribution block and 3 sealing rings. However, there are no serious problems with the machine. An angular drive is built into the box body of all-wheel drive vehicles, which is connected to the rear axle by a cardan shaft. The distribution of thrust is taken care of by a multi-plate clutch located in the block in front of the rear axle differential. The system is similar to the all-mode 4x4 used by Nissan. The thrust between the front and rear axles is distributed in a ratio from 100 to 0 to 50 to 50 depending on the driving conditions and parameters taken from the sensors, including the lateral acceleration sensor. The driver has at his disposal 3 transmission modes. 2WD the clutch is completely disengaged, and Renault Duster remains front-wheel drive. Unfortunately, the drive shaft continues to rotate, so the expected fuel economy effect is less pronounced than more advanced clutch and gearbox transmissions. The Auto mode allows you to drive with automatic all-wheel drive under normal operating conditions. In the lock position, the clutch is blocked, and the thrust between the axles is distributed in a ratio of 50 to 50. In terms of operation, the electromagnetic multiplate clutch is a more practical solution than the Haldex electro-hydraulic clutch, which is widely used in European cars. The Duster clutch is simpler, absolutely reliable, and does not require frequent oil changes, once every 50,000 kilometers, which is intended primarily for cooling. If the all-wheel drive system is faulty, then the controller or damaged wiring is usually to blame. This is possible when Renault Duster is often used on rough terrain and is not equipped with additional metal protection. It also protects the rear of the exhaust system, which, against all logic, is located under the rear axle, taking the first blow on itself. In the front-wheel drive version, the exhaust pipe is located correctly above the beam. After 100 to 150,000 kilometers, play may appear in the rear cross of the drive shaft. Fortunately, many services are ready to restore the shaft by installing new crosses. The most widespread are gasoline units with a volume of 1.6 liters. Before restyling, the K4M engine was offered, which has been widely used by Renault since 1998. In the Duster, it develops 102 horsepower. You won't have to stock up on additional funds to replace the phase regulators, because they are not here. In Europe, the K4M engine had two additional modifications. The first was intended to work on gas, and the second on E85 bioethanol. The more powerful H4M unit replaced the K4M after restyling in 2015. At the same time, the output of the 2-liter F4 are also increased from 135 to 143 horsepower. All Duster motors have a belt-type timing drive, which is recommended to be changed every 90,000 kilometers. The 114 horsepower H4M uses a timing chain drive. During the operation of K4M, you may encounter failed ignition coils. If the engine does not run smoothly and the engine malfunction indicator lamp lights up, then it is not recommended to continue further movement. The K4M control unit is not able to turn off an injector with a faulty coil, as, for example, the TSI controller and VW engines. As a result, the fuel, burning out in the exhaust, increases the thermal load on the catalyst. After 60 to 100,000 kilometers, fogging is sometimes found in the area of /U200B/U200B valve cover. Oil squeezes out from under the cover bolts. The motor has no other weak points, like the 2-liter F4R. In both units, after 70 to 100,000 kilometers, the thermostat may fail. A characteristic symptom is jumps in the readings of the temperature of the coolant. At first, the 1.5 DCI K9K turbo diesel was offered in two versions, slightly different in power and torque. The weakest option, with a return of 86 horsepower, has a compression ratio of 17.6 to 1 and a common rail injection system. Delphi fuel equipment is quite complicated, but quite reliable and maintainable. This unit was intended only for front-wheel drive modifications, and therefore, was combined with the JR5 manual transmission. The reliability of the ligament is increased by the absence of a dual-mass flywheel. Later, a 90 horsepower 1.5 DCI variant was offered. The compression ratio was lowered to 15.7 to 1, but the fuel system remained the same. The motors complied with Euro 4 toxicity standards and therefore were not equipped with particulate filters. The most powerful 1.5-liter turbo diesel with a return of 109 horsepower also works with a reduced compression ratio of 15.7 to 1. However, Siemens fuel equipment and a variable geometry turbocharger are installed here. Weaker versions use a turbine of constant geometry, where the performance is controlled by a bypass. The 109 horsepower turbo diesel is intended only for all-wheel drive modifications. So, it is combined with a TL8 manual transmission. The resource of the latter is more than 150 to 200,000 kilometers. The fuel system of a French turbo diesel is sensitive to fuel quality. Therefore, you should refuel only at proven gas stations and do not save on replacing the fuel filter. Fortunately, K9K does not cause serious problems. At the same time, after 60 to 100,000 kilometers, it may be difficult to start due to wear on the fuel injector check valve. After 100 to 150,000 kilometers, the EGR system, exhaust gas recirculation, may fail. The reason is the wear of the plastic parts of the EGR valve drive. Many have heard about the problems with the connecting rod bearings of the K9K engine. This defect is inherent in all versions of the 1.5 DCI turbo diesel, since the design of the crank mechanism is almost identical. The disease is especially common in Europe, where the oil change interval is 20 to 30,000 kilometers. However, the manufacturer claims that in 2013 the liners were reinforced. The best prevention is a more frequent oil change, every 7 to 10,000 kilometers. Before restyling, owners of diesel Dusters were ordered to change the oil every 10,000 kilometers. After restyling, the service interval was increased to 15,000 kilometers. So far, there have been no cases of premature wear of the liners on the Duster. Nevertheless, experts recommend proactively changing the liners after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. It takes almost 4.5 hours to dismantle and reinstall the oil pan, as well as to prepare for replacement in the official service. It takes another 4 hours to directly replace the liners. Experienced mechanics also recommend installing new bolts, although the manufacturer does not require this. The durability of Duster's paintwork is no different from competitors. Chips and scratches soon form. A number of car owners of 2012 to 2013, after 1 to 3 years, found cracking of the paintwork on the roof in the drainage groove, closer to the tailgate. The manufacturer acknowledged the defect and increased the length of the weld in the problem area. In specimens collected after 2013, this disease does not occur. Sometimes water gets into the engine compartment. It flows down the fluid supply pipe to the washer. The washer nozzles are mounted on the hood without sealing rubber bands. In addition, the nozzle body may be defective or cracked. Unpleasant consequences occur when liquid enters the ignition coil. It fails. In the summer, from time to time, a puddle forms under the front passenger mat. This is condensate from the air conditioner evaporator. It gets into the cabin due to the undocking of the drainage elements, or careless assembly on the conveyor. After restyling, the problem is less common.